Hello, I'm Paul Carroll, technical writer for Digital Photo Magazine, and welcome to part 2 of this month's Digital Darkroom video tutorials on recreating black and white special effects. In this part of the tutorial, we're going to be looking at how you can inverse the tones of a black and white image to recreate a surrealist solarization effect, like this, on a black and white image. Okay, let's get started. Open up the file Solarization from off the CD-ROM. Now we're going to be using a curves adjustment to invert the tonal range. So go up to the image menu, down to adjustments, and from the flyout menu you want to select curves, which is in the first part of the list, about halfway down. As with our infrared tutorial, there's not one single recipe that will work with every image, but there are a couple of good curves that are worth trying first. So start by clicking in the very centre of the curve line and pushing up the curve to an output level of around 190. Next, drag down this adjustment point on the right hand side of the curve line, which is up in the highlight region of the curve, and drag that all the way down to the bottom to an output level of 0. So your curve line is forming the shape of a hill, and you can see from our image behind that we've already started to invert the tones. Then you can create a different effect by clicking roughly a quarter of the way along the curve line and pulling the curve line to the right, and then doing the same on the other side, so clicking roughly around 3/4 of the way along the curve line and dragging that left, so you're creating more of a inverted V shape, and that's really giving us a bit more punch to the image. Other curve line variations worth trying are the W and M letter shapes. So if you select the curve adjustment point on the left hand side of the curve line, which is in the shadow region, and just bring that up so that it's roughly level with your midpoint adjustment, and then do the same with the curve line adjustment point on the right hand side, the highlight curve point, and bring that up to form the shape of a W. And then for another variation, try flipping the W around and creating an M shape. So we just need to adjust all 5 adjustment points, something like that, and again you get a different looking finish. If none of those curves are working quite right on your image though, it's really just a process of trial and error, dragging the curve around till you invert those tones and create an interesting looking effect. I think something like that's working quite nicely on my image, so it's a bit flat, but we're still inverting those tones, so something like that. Once you're happy with the curve, you drag the dialog box around so you can see the effect it's having. Yeah, I think that looks quite good. So just click OK. One of the key characteristics of a solarized image is white lines along these tonal edges, and if I zoom in tight like you can see there, you can see that curve effect that I've just applied has now given these sharp white lines to the tonal edges. And so to really emphasize these edges, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some blur just to the edges. To do this, I need to make a duplicate copy of my background layer, so I'm just going to drag on my layers palette, and if I go up to the layer menu and down to duplicate layer, click OK. I'm now going to apply a filter just to my background copy layer, which will pick out the edges in the image. So to do that, go up to the filter menu, down to blur, and from the flyout menu select smart blur, which is towards the bottom of the list. Then under the quality box we want to select high, and the mode will normally be set to normal, and we want to select edge only. And you can see from the image preview here that it's really just picking out the edges of the tonal register. We can adjust the radius slider to select how wide of pixels we want to define as an edge, but we just really want to blur the very sharp edges, so I'm going to leave it around a radius of 3 and a threshold of 25. Click OK, and there we go. With the filter applied, you can see now that we're just picking out the very edge details of the pylon. Next thing we need to do then is blur those edges. So still on our background copy layer, go up to the filter menu, down to blur again, and this time select Gaussian blur from the flyout menu, which is about halfway down. Use the radius slider to determine the amount of blur. I think a radius of around 3. We don't want to blur it too heavily, so yeah, around 3 looks okay. Once you're happy, then just click OK. So with that blur applied to our tonal edges, All we need to do now is change the blending mode of our background copy layer and change the way the pixels on this layer are interacting with the layer below. And what we'll do is we'll use the screen blending mode. So click in the blending mode box, and from the list we want to select screen, which is in the third list, and as you can see, the screen blending mode effectively hides the black pixels, allowing the solarized image from underneath to come through, but it still gives us the white pixels from our background copy layer, which is adding that blur to the tonal edges. So there we go, a cracking solarized effect in just a few simple steps in Photoshop. I really hope you've enjoyed this technique. Give it a go yourself using the start image from off the CD, and then get solarizing your own images in the future. Cheers!